This Mike from Minimal 3DP, and today I'm continuing my conversion of my Ender 5 Plus to the Mercury 1.1 Core XY. To start, I've gone ahead and created some parts. I have a bracket to go on the linear rail that screws into the slider, and this is where my mounting plate's going to go. And I created this mounting plate. So this snaps right on here, and then I'm going to mount the BQ hermit crab to here, and then my belts are going to come off the side. So hopefully this is going to work the way I want it to. We're going to go ahead and see. Now, in order to get the belts correct, I'm going to switch back over to my on-shape diagram and go through that. So you can see in the drawing how the belts are. So I'm going to start with the bottom belt, and that's from the left side of the hot end and coming around, and that's on the bottom. So let's go ahead and get my pieces mounted on the rail, and then we'll see where we need to go from there. I'm going to start off trying some M36s here. See how that works. And that goes in well, and it's flush. So this is looking correct. Then I'll go ahead and put the fourth screw in. Now, I didn't show it well, but in the bottom here, I've slipped in some M4 nuts. So I'm going to use M4 screws to hold this on. This should snap into place down here at the bottom. And so I'll use M4 nuts to hold this all together. Let me go ahead and get those. Now, ideally, this should work really well. Now, it looks like it's lower than my screw holes for the hermit crab, so that's going to be good. Nice and tight. And what I'm going to need to do now is run the belts. So I'm going to run the belts, and then I'll mount the hermit crab. I think I just have enough room where these screws aren't blocking these threaded inserts, where I'll use for the BQ hermit crab. So this is looking correct. And let's go ahead and start work on the belts. Now, I've gone ahead and printed off some belt clips. So once I loop the belts around, I'm going to use these clips to hold them in place. Now, I've used these before when I switched over to linear rails. These should work really well. And it just takes a couple minutes to print them. I printed a bunch extra, so I have them on hand just in case I break them or there's some other problem. But I don't expect any issues to arise. So I'm going to start off with the red belt here in the on-shape diagram. And if you look, that's going to start from the left side over here, come around, that's going to go behind the tooth gear on the X gantry, around the front, around the back, and then to the right side bottom. So, and then it looks like it's going around the exterior back here. So let's go ahead and get started. I went ahead and got close to the front so you could see where I put on the belt clip, so you can see how that goes. And then I'll move back out so you can see the whole assembly. To start, I've gone ahead and slip the belt clip on here, and then I'm going to come around here. And this is going to be a little difficult, but I have to slip the belt through here. So I'm going to wrestle this through. And I'm having trouble because, again, I'm trying not to hit the camera while at the same time getting this through. So let me try moving this around, and I'll get it through off camera and then switch back to it so you can see it. It took me a minute to get through, but you can see I've hooked it around here. Now what I've done is I've gone ahead and unrolled the whole roll, and I have the teeth on the belt facing out. I'm giving this a yank, and it looks like my clip's holding, so that's good. And now what I'm going to do is switch cameras so you can sort of see the whole assembly as I go around and set all this up. So again, looking at the one-shape drawing, you'll notice the belt's coming back around the tooth gear on the X gantry, and then coming up towards the front. Now again, I'm doing this with the teeth facing out, so the teeth will be against the tooth gear. So I've switched to this view, and I'm going to take my belt, and I want to make sure this stays straight. I'm not sure if I'm going to need one belt or two. I'm just going to go back here. It's coming around the front here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this reasonably tight. Now, I should have pointed this out. I actually have some stops here so I can tension the belt. So let me show these pieces real quick. So just to hold this steady, I'm going to slip this down here. Do the same over here. So that's holding these pieces. Now, I'm going to go ahead and drop a screw in here to hold this steady. I've gone ahead and put a little end stop piece in here to hold it. Now, I want to take this, I'm going to go back through here. So I got this all twisted. There we go. So this is going to come back, go around back here. Let me look at the drawing again so I can tell which way it needs to go. So it's going around the flange stack, back around the extruder, and then around this flange stack, and then across the back. So let's see if we can get this correct. I don't really have a good angle for the camera, so I'm just going to go ahead and put this through. I'll stay on camera and sort of talk through it, but there's just not a good angle I can get here. Turned the printer around. It's still not perfect, but I actually think this is pretty good. So it's going to go, whoops, in the camera, so give me a second here. I have belt everywhere. I probably should cut this down, but I'm not sure how much slack I'm going to need. And I prefer not to cut anything until I know for sure. Let me get to the end here. So looking at the drawing, I'm going to come around the front here, go back around the extruder, and looks like I'm going to need a pair of tweezers to get this aligned correctly. There we go. I'm trying to grab and the belt and push it through. So I have to go around the extruder motor. It might help if my belt wasn't bent here at the end. Okay. So I got it going around the motor now. I'm going to come back through. So I'm turning it through. Get a little slack here. I'm going to thread it through around. A little too much slack. I said trying to stay on camera and do this. A little bit of pain. There we go. Now I need to line this up with the flange stacks, but let me get some tension in here. Of course, I got off the motor. So let's come back up. There we go. Okay. This is going to come across the back. And what I'm going to do is pause this a little bit. Oops. Put that around the motor a little bit. What I'm going to do is turn the printer so we can look across the back. So I'm looking at our drawing again. It looks like we're coming across the back and then around down on these low ones and back to the front of the gantry. So let's see if we can make this work. So I'm looking at the back here. I'm going to come through here. We're going to go around. And this needs to come up to the front of the gantry. What I'm going to do is pull my slack out here. Put that up front. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn the printer around so that way we can see the front. The belt, as I mentioned, is going to come back across the back, teeth facing out, around like this. I'm coming up to the front now, making sure the belt is straight and teeth are facing out. I'm going to come around here, go behind everything here. It's coming behind. I have way too much slack. I think on the next belt, I may cut things down before I even start. Just making sure these are on these flange stacks. As you can see, I'm going to go ahead and cut this about here so I can pull some things tight. So it's going to come around here and do a cut. What I'm doing is I'm taking my belt. I'm going to get a little bit extra slack here. So I've gone ahead and cut my belt right here so that way I can slip it through and put a clip here. So that'll give me the bottom belt. So let me get a belt clip. So I have one of my clips. I'm slipping it on. And then I'm going to push the belt through here. And I think I'm going to have to do this off camera again because this is hard to get through. Or maybe not. There we go. Now, what I'm going to need to do is really tighten this Oops. I want to make sure everything's, so what I'm doing is making sure the belt is on the flange stacks all the way around. So everything's sitting right. It looks like we are. I'm going to have to pull this tight, but what I'm going to do, I think, is leave this like this and then work on the other belt. And that way I could try to tighten them both simultaneously. And I may need to get somebody in here to help me pull things forward so I can really get this buckled down. In fact, let me try. Now, I'm just going to leave this off like this. Let me try putting on the other belt, and then that way I'm not messing anything up. So let me go ahead and start working on the other belt. Now it looks like the top belt's going to start from the right side. So I'm going to put a belt clip right in this area, right in here, right over in here, and then come up and around. So let me go ahead and do this, and I'll walk you through. I'm not going to do camera views. I'll just walk you through as I'm doing it on the drawing here, because that way you can follow the route a little bit better. So as you can see here, I have belt clip on. So the belt clip is on here, and now I'm ready to run the belt. And so I'm going to run the belt based off of my drawing. You can follow along, and I'll follow along with the drawing so you can see it good. So I'm going to go behind the tooth gear, the teeth on the belt facing the teeth on the gear, come around the front and then go around the back. Take the belt. Again, I'm making sure these teeth are out. Coming around the tooth gear. Again, I have my pieces here to pull the belt. I want to make sure, and I'm going to cut slack here and all that. So this is going to the back, and then it's going to go through and around the gears from the extruder, from the motor, from the stepper, and then around. So let's see if we can go ahead and get this. So I'm coming around the back here, making sure my extruder wires are out of the way. I'm going to come flange stack here in the back. And this is going to come through here. Now, the one thing I've done is I got these with what? Stepper, these belts crisscrossed here somehow. Oops, I see what the problem is. And lastly, I need to pull this through here. So this is going to be really tough to get through. Let me work on that, and I'll get it off camera, and I'll get it hooked up, and then we'll see how I tighten this. I finally got this in. Let me fix the camera. Oops. So I've gotten this in. Move the wires, and I have to try to tighten everything now. Now I'm going to tighten the one side, then I'll work on the other side. So I feel like that's fairly tight. Now what I'm going to do is clip this belt a little bit more so I can slip my belt clip down. Now, I will say this, I should be able to tension via these end pieces here. If you remember, they have tensioners, but I prefer to get this as tight as I can. Now, just making sure all this is going around things. I'm going to apologize for hitting the camera. It's just hard to maneuver around. I don't have much space here. Now, this actually all feels pretty dang tight. And I'm just making sure all my belts are on the flange stacks like they're supposed to. So I'm slipping the belt clip on these two belts. On the belt loop, I mean. I have to grease that a little bit. Let's move this out. Try loosening my screws a little bit here. See if I can get that going, but this really does feel pretty good. It's just some of the, and I see what the problem is over here. Of course, the belt isn't on the flange stack, so I'll have to mess with that. But let me fix these couple issues and then I'll come back. So I've gotten all the belts corrected. Everything's moving appropriately. I just had to undo the belt and fix the left side. I missed a gear. I didn't go around the flange stack. It fell off. So I have that all corrected. Everything appears to be okay. The belts are pretty tight. I'm not sure if I have them too tight. I've compared it against how tight they are on my Tronxy, and the Tronxy, I'll be honest, seems really loose. But let me see what this does. As I may have tightened them too much, but I can always loosen. And because I have a little bit of slack, I'm not going to clip the belts around my adapter here till I know if I, again, have them too tight. So I'm going to stop for the night, and then I'll come back tomorrow and finish things out. I want to thank everybody again for joining me as I'm working on upgrading my Ender 5 Plus to the Mercury 1.1. So far, I'm really enjoying putting this build together. Sorry I have to break it into so many steps, but it turns out I have to do some research between each section as I put stuff together. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments. If you like what I'm doing, please feel free to share. Again, any feedback, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. Have a good day.